All right, this is a voiceover on qualitative data analysis. So earlier we talked a little bit about what qualitative research is all about and how you would acquire your data. And now we're going to talk a little bit about what you're going to do with all of that data. So I'm hoping that you understand a basic process of how we analyze data. We're going to look at a very brief sample of a transcript, walk you through maybe how you code the words and create categories, and then perhaps even there come up with your overall themes. So your data analysis begins when you're in the field, and this is why we talked a lot about, or not a lot, some about taking field notes. Okay, what are your observations? What's going on? So all of those things that you recorded in your field notes are part of your data that you can analyze too. Your field notes are really good ways to apply more meaning to what your interviewees were talking about. So different types of body language, different types of gestures that they may have that you jotted down in your field notes may give you additional meaning to what was said during those interviews. So your interviews should be recorded, or you should be recording them. And then you want to transcribe them exactly as is. So the term that a lot of students say is verbatim. You want to transcribe them as soon after the interview as possible. That way, if maybe the dictaphone kind of cuts out, something like that, a lot of times you'll be amazed that you can understand or remember what was said during those times. Again, if you do that soon after the interview. You're going to want to make a copy of the transcribed interview for your file and save it on your computer. Save it in another place. I had a fellow classmate of mine in my PhD studies that her computer died. She saved all of her files on her computer, and they were unable to retrieve all of that data. And so she had to start over with the time-consuming process of re-interviewing all of her people, and think of the time that it takes to interview all of these people. So please do not take that lightly. Make a copy, save it on a jump drive. Some of the digital dictaphones, I'm not sure if some of you are able to use those, but a lot of my data is stored on that as well. So if I lost my hard copy of my transcriptions, I'd still be able to listen to the recording and transcribe it again, although that still would be a pain, because as those of you who are knee-deep in qualitative data, you know that typing is a lengthy process. So you're going to want to, once you transcribe everything, you're going to want to read that transcriptions, okay? And you may want to just start marking interesting passages, things that just kind of pop out to you, or things that kind of are answering your research question, maybe things that you didn't expect. And then you'll want to make notes in the margins of, where are you going to use this data at? So a lot of the qualitative data analysis that you see published goes through a coding process. And so this is where you go through each interview and you ask, okay, what is this person talking about? So sometimes you'll want to divide up your transcription, your typed out interview. Everybody's a little different. Maybe you'll want to do it sentence by sentence. Maybe you'll want to divide it into paragraph. And you're going to talk about, okay, what is this person talking about in this paragraph? What's going on? Now, there's different types of coding processes that if any of you want to learn more about coding processes, I actually have a book. Saldana is an author who talks about several different types or ways to code. I think the most common way that I've seen students tend to gravitate towards is just sort of a summative reporting. What's going on here? And then you'll want to assign a code word or a simple code phrase that describes, descriptive coding, that describes what exactly the interview is talking about. Now you want to consider the following when you're looking through coding. Where is this taking place at? Where is this person talking about? Is it taking place, are they talking about their classroom? Are they talking about their work experiences? What are the participants' way of thinking? Okay, so are these participants somewhat biased already? Maybe they think children are bad when they're talking about behavior, those kinds of things. So maybe they're already biased and saying, you know, these kids that we're talking about, they're just all problem children. Okay, so you'll have to kind of consider that too. You'll also have to consider the perspectives. Okay, that's what qualitative data analysis is all about, or qualitative research. You're gaining the perspective of people. Okay, so instead of problem children, maybe you run into somebody who has the perspective of, well, they're just poor learners, or they're not exactly problem children, but they just have difficulty with learning. Okay, maybe that's their perspective. What activities are they describing? Okay, are students sitting quietly? Are students jumping up out of their chairs? Are there particular strategies that they're talking about? Okay, maybe they're talking about children in a classroom, and you're asking them, well, what are some of the strategies that teachers are giving to address the behaviors? And maybe, you know, they'll be saying, oh, the teacher gives them a timeout and they have to go in the corner, or they have to write their name on the board. So you'll want to find out kind of what those specific strategies are, or point out those strategies. And then with your data analysis, you're going to want to find out or identify specific relationships. Okay, what are relationships that are going on here? Are there friends? Are there friends' children that are acting out? Are they additional family members that are acting out, or that they're referring to or talking about? Is there one child? Are they referring to a group of children? And so you'll want to kind of dive into if they're describing any types of relationships that are going on. So you'll consider all of those things when you're trying to come up with a code word for your text segment. So for example, here's a coding example. K was the initial use for the interview. So this is what the person is saying. For us, we really got to, it was like a lot of playing with the babies, holding the babies. You know, a lot of these babies didn't have the attachment, so they really wanted us to be able to help bond with these babies, and the nurses held them every day and fed them every day, and so we got, you know, we had toys that went, and we played with them and held them and just basically gave them some extra attention. And I think to give the nurses a little bit of a break too, because they had so many babies. That was neat. It was neat. Okay, so that is a verbatim transcription, right, from an interview. And so some of the stuff, as we know when we talk conversationally, that you say things like, you know, like, so, yeah. And so sometimes with our dictations or transcriptions, we can kind of pull some of that out. And so, again, depending on how your preceptor does it, if they want to go line by line or paragraph by paragraph, we have to try and decide what is going on in this paragraph, or what is going on, what are they talking about. And so giving you just a little backdrop, you know, this was part of a quote from somebody who did international service learning with somebody, I don't know if it was Peru or Guatemala, but they obviously were working with children, okay, and doing some service there. And so what are they talking about? You know, if we look at the first line and they're talking about their international service learning experience, we really got to play with babies, hold babies. And so we can code that, okay? So what are we talking about? What are they talking about? What did they do? And so it's up to you to kind of code or come up with a code word for that. What's really fascinating about qualitative research is every single student who's listening to this presentation may use a different word to code this, right? You may code it playing. You may code it caring for babies, okay? Something along those lines that may be different for each of you, and that is okay, because you take those code words, and we'll talk about how you can condense them, and what's fascinating is you all kind of come up with the same general thing later on down the road. So it's quite uncanny how this all plays out. So don't get too hung up, okay? Don't get too hung up if, everybody's like, well, I don't know what I'd code that. So if we take it for the next sentence, a lot of these babies didn't have the attachment, so they really wanted us to help bond with these babies. Okay, so what are they talking about here? They're talking about, again, if we're doing descriptive coding, what are they describing? What's going on? Okay, maybe you want to code that bonding. Maybe you want to code that helping with attachment, okay, or something along those lines. Then the second part of that sentence, this person's kind of talking about something else. Nurses held them every day and fed them every day. Okay, so there maybe we want to code that as something separate too. Nurses feed, or something along those lines. Some of your preceptors are going to do this differently than, say, I would do it too. So maybe they would just say, only one word for a code. And that's okay. That helps us condense. We have, with qualitative data, we have all this data. Every single word is a piece of data, and we have to condense it somehow. So we got, we had toys that went, and we played with them and held them and just basically gave them extra attention. And so what are they talking about? They're talking about caring for babies, okay, or something along those lines. So again, we have this descriptive code word where above the first one we got, playing with babies, holding the babies. If we had the code word caring for babies or something along those lines, and then this part, we played with them, held them, gave them extra attention, and we coded that caring for babies. That's good. We have two of the same code words. Okay, that's what you want. That helps us condense all of this data. Okay, and so again, those are just some simple examples. Your preceptors are going to help you. Okay, you all are probably going to code your own interviews, and then you're probably going to come together as a group. And so some of you may code it a little bit differently, right? And so you're going to have to kind of figure that out, how each other codes. When you get all of your codes, you're going to make a list. You're going to jot down every single code word. Okay, you may have a lot of those code words. Okay, so you're going to go back to that data list and you're going to try and condense them even further. Can you summarize them even further? So maybe one of you is coding caring for babies. Maybe one of you is saying holding babies. Well, is holding babies caring for babies? Maybe so. So you can condense holding babies to caring for babies. Okay, and so you're going to have to go back to your data with your list and kind of identify where you can condense even more. Okay. Also, maybe some of you, maybe you'll kind of identify new codes that are emerging. Okay. From there, when you come up with all of your code words, okay, you're going to make a list of them, and then you're going to kind of lump them into, okay, well, all this person is talking about caring for babies. Okay, now we're talking about caring for oneself. Now we're talking about caring for nurses. Now we're talking about caring for parents. Okay, and so you're going to want to organize all of those code words in order to reflect how people are describing their experiences. So again, if we're looking at students' experiences with international service learning, you may want to group those similar code words and come up into categories. Okay, so maybe the category that I'm looking for is caring for others. Okay, so because we're talking about caring for babies, we're talking about caring for the nurses, we're talking about caring for the parents, we're talking about caring for oneself. Okay, and so again, we're lumping those all together, and we can lump all those code words into a category, caring for others, or caring for each other, something like that. Okay. When you identify that, that's going to be the title for your category, caring for each other. Okay, something like that. Then you're going to go back to your data and maybe circle quotes that support the categories. Okay, circle, highlight, something like that. So, okay, so we've identified these code words. The category that all these code words have something to do with caring for oneself, caring for others. So now I'm going to go back to the interview data and see if there's really good quotes that back that up of how important it was to care for other people. So once we have the titles of our various categories, we're going to see what those categories kind of condense into. So maybe we have a category caring for others, and we have another or caring for other people, or caring for people, something like that. And now we have a category that talks about gaining OT experience. Okay, so maybe there's code words that have to do with reflex testing. Maybe there's code words that have to deal with caregiver interviews. Maybe there's code words that have to deal with feeding techniques. Okay, and so all of those code words may be condensed into occupational therapy. Okay, so is there a relationship between occupational therapy, between that category, and caring for others? Okay, so that relationship between those two may actually develop your theme. Okay, so individuals who engaged in international service learning were able to practice occupational therapy interventions in order to help care for individuals. Okay, and so again, that may be that theme that you develop based on your categories forming relationships with one another. Okay. Again, you're going to want to go back to your data and come up with quotes or come up with data that supports what you said. Okay, that supports that theme. Okay, so now you're integrating the categories and themes from each one of your interviews. So basically, you're coming up with data, in other words, quotes from your participants that really support that theme. So while we're analyzing data, these are some things that we need to keep in mind. I believe we've probably talked about these already, so I'm going to briefly just kind of mention them. But as we're analyzing our data, we want to make sure that we're assuring that our data is accurate, right? And that we're demonstrating trustworthiness. I think some qualitative authors call it crystallization, those kinds of things. So some of the things that you want to be able to do is use triangulation. And so this is using multiple strategies to strengthen the credibility of what you're doing. So if we have our field notes that talk about the different types of body language or observations during our interviews, okay, and we're triangulating that with the data, that's the words that are being said, and we're putting those together, and now we're adding, a nice thorough literature review to identify what's being said, what's been published already, to support those themes that we're using, and then we're using specific quotations that go to our themes as well. Well, here we're using multiple strategies to strengthen the credibility of our themes. And so a lot of times in qualitative research, and again, your preceptors all may be doing it a little bit differently, but it's not uncommon to read qualitative research and have some of the literature pulled in with the themes. So you identify these themes, right? And you're using data, you're using quotations from your interviews, and then maybe you're using some literature too to support that particular theme. Okay, well, practicing occupational therapy and helping care for other people while completing international service learning has been reported by, so-and-so, et al., 2008, whatever. And so sometimes you'll see that literature being pulled in as a means to help triangulate your findings. Doing member checks. And so, my preceptors for my studies always told me that member checks should be done throughout your data analysis. So instead of just sending transcripts and saying, "Hey, did I transcribe everything that you said?" Give it a look, see, and make sure you don't want me to strike anything out, or if you want to add anything. Okay, that's one method of member checking. But I was always encouraged to, when I start doing my analysis, when I start coming up with my themes, sharing those themes with your individuals, again, your participants. And seeing if they agree with what it is that you're saying. A level of saturation is, when you have so many interviews and you're kind of coding all those words and you kind of come up with the same coding, the same code words, they're talking about the same thing over and over and over again, and then you're not gaining anything new. So when that happens, you're reaching that level of saturation, and you want to reach that level of saturation in order to make sure that those themes are accurate. Reflexivity. So sometimes just being reflexive or reflecting on your own biases, maybe jotting things down in a reflexive journal on how you're feeling. Those kinds of things, maybe reporting your bias. That's something that you see people write about in qualitative research is, why were they motivated to do this? Why were they motivated to do this study? How did they account for their biases? Okay, so for my reflexivity, when I studied international service learning, I was a participant of international service learning several years ago. I thought it was the greatest thing ever. So that's going to bias how I listen to other people, right? So if I think international service learning is the best thing since sliced bread, I may be listening for only the positive when people are reporting their experiences. Oh, I was so sick when I did my international service learning experience, and in my mind, I may think, oh, what a great experience that they were able to get medical treatment and, blah, 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 where that may not be the point of their perspective, right? And so doing a thorough literature review helped me account for other people's opinions. Not everybody thinks international service learning is great, Okay. Um, so doing a thorough literature review helped me with my reflexivity or helped me with my bias. Using open-ended questions. So instead of saying, oh, isn't international service learning the greatest thing ever? I would say, tell me about your international service learning experience. Okay. Doing an audit trail also helps kind of keep things in check. Okay, so what are the steps that you're taking? What is your to-do list? What do you plan on doing? Why do you plan on doing that? And just kind of writing down that to-do list and what's been done and how you've done it. That way, if somebody wanted to complete your study again, they'd be able to follow your audit trail and continue on with your study. If you use an audit trail, again, that's really assuring your accuracy for an accurate or trustworthy study if somebody can follow your steps to redo your study again. Peer debriefing is one, since there's multiple people in your research groups. Peer debriefing is great. You can discuss with your peers, well, this is what I'm reading. What are you reading? Is it the same? Is it different? And so you will be using that peer debriefing perhaps during your coding process, perhaps while you're analyzing stuff. And 2 heads, 3 heads, 4 heads, 5 heads, 6 heads are usually better than 1, especially with qualitative research. So writing the results, instead of results section, usually you have a findings section. And this is where you will give a thorough description of your themes. Okay, so this is where some of your preceptors will have you bring in literature, some of you will wait until your discussion. Okay, it just depends. But findings will be a thorough description of your themes. So your themes, maybe you'll have a visual representation of your themes, and I've posted some examples of some visual representations of how you would get to your themes. Okay, those of you who have been to the research colloquium and have looked at some of the posters, you see how people present their themes, okay, into figures or possibly tables. In your findings section, you're going to be pulling stuff to support those themes, like I've talked about. Again, you're going to be pulling specific quotes. Okay, so you're going to be describing a theme. This is what's going on. This is what's happening. For example, one participant states, quote, and then you're pulling those direct quotes right from the literature, or I mean right from your findings or right from your interviews. Okay. Furthermore, this theme is similar to what was found in all of these studies, blah, 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 okay, where international service learning help people with their professional or gain professional skills. And then maybe you have a list of authors that help support that theme, okay. Again, some of your preceptors may pull that literature more into your discussion. It just depends on the preceptor. When you look at literature, I've seen it in both. Literature review. Again, your literature review can help open up your mind into other people's perspectives, right? It maybe give you a guide as far as what questions to ask for your participants. Okay, so that initial literature review is very important in establishing your accuracy for your study. But then you look at the literature again at the end because you want to somehow corroborate your themes. Are they the same? Are they different? Maybe your study is different and you want to say, hey, my theme doesn't support what was done in the literature. Okay, and that's significant too. You're then going to have a discussion. Now, your discussion is where you have your interpretations. Okay, so how is your study going to impact practice? Okay, again, this is where you may pull in more literature again. How do your findings relate to the literature? Is it the same? Is it different? How do you think this is going to benefit practice? Whether it's educational practices, or whether it's OT practice, or whether it's international practice. Okay, whatever. What are the additional areas that need to be researched based on your findings? Okay, so you're going to, in your discussion part, you're going to come up with some future research as well. So here's just kind of an example of a schemata where I have code words. Anxiety, appreciative, unsure, emotional, empathy, guilty, happy, making a difference, safety. Okay, all of those things condensed into categories of feelings and emotions. Okay, again, using descriptive coding. Additional coding has communication barrier, culture, differences, new, environment, location, schedule. Okay, so all of those things, kind of what those people were talking about when I coded differences, when I coded new, they were all talking about some kind of new experience. Okay, I've never dealt with, I've never spoken Spanish before. I've never spoken to anybody who only spoke Spanish. Okay, I've never experienced a new culture before. There were a lot of cultural differences. The environment was so different than ours. Okay, so all of those people were talking about new experiences. Okay, now again, as I've mentioned, these are categories, feelings and emotions, and new experiences. Are there relationships of people that talk about new experiences and the feelings and emotions that experience those new experiences make them feel? If there's a relationship there, that's what becomes our theme. So participants reported encountering many new experiences during their international service learning projects and voiced a variety of emotions they felt during their experiences. Okay, now I'm going to lengthen it a little bit. When thinking about their past international service learning experiences, all of the participants reported feeling grateful and appreciative of what they have in their current lives. Okay, so that's kind of a longer theme, right? But again, I'm trying to talk about what feelings and emotions experiencing those new experiences provided. Now, in this particular example, I had interviewed occupational therapists who were practicing, and they were practicing OT, and they were thinking back on their past ISL experience when they were students. And so again, they reported a lot of new experiences. Some of them made them feel sad. Some of them made them feel happy. So as a theme, I had to summarize that and summarized it as experiencing those new experiences had them experience a variety of emotions. And every single participant, all of the participants said, because of my past international service learning experience, I am so grateful and appreciative of what I have in my current life, of having a family, of having a house, of having a job, of having a paycheck. Okay? And so that's what this theme is trying to get at. So again, just kind of an example. I've also posted other examples of other types of schematas. Some people like to use arrows that kind of show what categories are forming relationships and then what categories relate to their themes. Some categories don't have themes, and so you may have a theme for every category that you have. It just depends, and your preceptors are going to be your best ally, your best resource on how to do this. If you have any other questions, please feel free to talk to me. I love qualitative research. That's what I did my dissertation on. And so what I know about qualitative research is a lot of people do it differently, but you a lot of times come up with the same endpoint. And so very neat experience to have that happen. Again, review your examples that I'll post online. Ask me any questions if you wish. Also, your preceptors, again, since qualitative research, people do things differently. They do what they've been taught. They do what they know. They do what they know works. Your preceptors are going to be your best line of strategy here. Thank you.